My name is Denis Thompson. I am the creator of the technology and the therapy. The first thing I'd like to do is kind of give you a brief background of our company. We are not new. We have been in business for well in excess of 18 years. We've treated roughly 300,000 patients with better than a 95% success rate. We have 3,000 of the most elite athletes and counting as clients. This is a very, very unique therapy. So let me kind of give you a brief overview of how we started and why we started this journey. It began when I was a high school student in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and had a propensity for science. And my goal was to become an orthopedic surgeon. My mother and father wanted me to be an orthopedic surgeon. And at that time, there was a thing called a mentoring program. And what a mentoring program was all about is doctors in the area, if you had a propensity for science and you had good academics, they would agree to sponsor you to put you through school, with the understanding is that you would work within their practice when you graduated from school. And it was a relatively easy task for them because I would be on athletic scholarship. But I never could wrap my arms around physical medicine. I love the idea of orthopedic surgery, but I just could not wrap my arms around and my head around physical medicine. So I decided to investigate how other countries and other disciplines addressed soft tissue injury, addressed orthopedic problems, addressed disease in general. And I expanded my knowledge base and went and got information from many, many countries throughout the world, as well as investigating splinter groups within the United States. And keep in mind, I'm in high school now. And I began to really get enamored with a Russian by the name of Yakov Katz. Yakov Katz was the very first neurophysiologist in the world. And he was the prime motivating force for the Russian Federation of Athletes. And if you know your history in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the Russians were very dominant in all athletic activities and quite frankly were quite superior to us in the development of superior athletes. And I began to look at Dr. Katz's research, and so I tried to get as much information on Dr. Katz as I possibly could. I got all of his writings, and I had students at a college in Sioux Falls called Augustana. There was a Russian student there who was kind enough to translate it for me. And I became deeply engrossed with a simple statement. And that statement was, the greater the stimulus, the greater the change. And I noticed how they did what they did. And it was quite aggressive, to say the least, and would never work in the United States. But the one thing that was constant in all of it is they had amazing results. And so as I started to go down this journey and went into school, I decided that I did not want to become an orthopedic surgeon. I wanted to research just simple things like, why do we have atrophy? Why does it take so long to recover from an injury? Why do we have so many injuries? And I was an active athlete, as I mentioned earlier. And so I was very, very, very interested in just answering those three questions. And the problem with answering those three questions is they cannot be answered in the degree that I was following, which is exercise physiology. To this day, we have atrophy all over the world. We treat it exactly the same way. Now, if we haven't overcome simple little thing like atrophy, we've got the best doctors, the best therapists, the best strength coaches, the best trainers throughout the entire world, and we still have atrophy. It cannot possibly be physiological. So what else is there? Well, when I turned that coin over, I began looking at the neurology of the problem, not the physiology of the problem. And then I started digging into what I was learning in school, what all the medical students were learning in school, and it did not address, and to this day does not address, the neurological component of what we are educated in. Example, as an exercise physiologist, I was not educated in the neurology of physiology. And all of the medical students at that time and today are not educated in the neurology of what they do, only the physiology and pharmacology of what they do, which leaves a gigantic gap in therapy. So I decided that I wanted to answer those three simple questions. And I'm a why guy. I'm not a where guy. And what that means is I want to know why you have the problem, not where you have the problem. And everyone else is trained in where you have the problem. Now, as the journey began, I needed to find a tool which would accomplish the task of what I believed in my mind was necessary. I believed that you had to have movement. I believe you had to have stimulus. And I believe you had to break the pattern that you were stuck in. Otherwise, you're just like everything else. So I began the quest, and I looked at all of the different technology here in the United States, from the biggest companies to the smallest, and found nothing. I began looking all over Europe. I found nothing. I looked all over Asia. I found nothing. I looked all over the East. I found nothing. And to this day, that is still the situation, with the exception of Russia. Again, I'm going back to Dr. Kotz and his dominance. Well, he had created and kind of, I would say, rather than created, he tasked, commissioned a lady by the name of Andrianov to create for him a device that would give him tremendous stimulus and, in his mind, give him results. That device was called Stimmel 1. And Stimmel 1 was an extraordinarily effective device, but also an extraordinarily uncomfortable device. So that device would not satisfy my needs. And it caused too many breakdowns in communication. I was looking at something that I could put the patient in active range of motion, break a neurological compensation pattern, and retrain a new pattern. To do that, it had to trick the nervous system. Well, we began looking, and finally, on a message board, I heard from a company out of Denver, Colorado, and they said, I think I have what you might be looking for. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. Will it allow me to do active range of motion? They said, well, I think it will. And I jumped on an airplane and went and met with the owner of the company. And I said, what I want to do is do research. Take me about 6 months to do the research. I'll buy a couple of these units from you. I'll work with a number of doctors on an IRB, and we'll begin doing research. If it does what I think it will do based upon what you've told me, I'll come back to you after our research is done, and I will ask you to private label it for me. So in that journey of finding out, does this technology work, I already had in my mind the protocols. I just needed a tool to allow those protocols to be used. Today, we have 425 protocols broken down into 18 templates. We've treated well in excess of 300,000 patients with better than a 95% success rate. And I do mean better than a 95% success rate. And every one of those patients, we did not treat where they had the problem. We treated why they had the problem.